Guys, what's up? So Figma Config 2023 just blew my mind. The features that they've introduced are so insane and so powerful that I'm just like, I don't know. I'm astonished. I am out of words. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you a rundown or a quick summary of all the features that Figma has introduced and also explain them in a simple manner. I already have the variables, the advanced prototyping file, and all of these files open that Figma has actually given us to help us familiarize ourselves with these new features, and I'm going to link them in the description. So once you've seen this video, definitely do check them out. I've actually checked them out, and I feel like even now people are going to be confused by how complicated some of this stuff is, because I think it definitely needs, it is a bit complicated. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with something really basic. So the basic thing that I want to talk about is, let's say, auto layout. So they've made a few improvements in auto layout, two things that they've improved. And I'm actually just going to show you with this box. So we have this box here. Actually, let me just delete everything. Let me just go ahead and delete this whole thing. So we have just these boxes. So what they've introduced is they've introduced something like wrapping. So previously you had something like left and right and up and down, but now you have wrapping as well. So what wrapping does is, let's actually just see what wrapping does. So if I do wrap, nothing's exactly going to happen, because if I try to resize it, this is behaving pretty much exactly like how it used to behave. But now, along with, let's say, Figma's features of max width and minimum width, we can make this extremely powerful. The first thing, which is a pretty simple thing, and a lot of people would actually be doing this and showing you how this is amazing, but it's not actually this particular thing that's amazing. So I actually went ahead and created a manual width for these particular boxes, and now if you try to resize it, as you can see, these boxes are resizing and based on the container width that's available, and they're not resizing, they're actually wrapping to the other line. But what if we actually wanted to have a grid sort of a layout where at a particular screen I want these boxes, two of the boxes, to go down and also take full width? Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm also actually going to help you explain max width. So you can set the max width by going here, and I'm going to add a max width to this container. I'm going to say that this particular container should not exceed beyond, let's say, 1200 pixels or something along those lines. Actually make it large so we can at the very least have both these items here. So now if I try to resize it, and actually let me just select all of these elements as well, all of these children's, because I was just showing you setting it as a manual width. But now, as you can see, if I'm, let's say, resizing it, it's not resizing, and I can actually make it centered. So we're going to have a centered container, and we can resize, we can keep on resizing the container, but the object that we have inside is not going to scale beyond it. And if we actually go past a particular point, then it's going to start resizing. So it's amazing. This particular feature, max width, minimum width, is insane. Even without the wrapping, this thing is going to blow, this thing blows my mind up. It's pretty simple, but it's really amazing that Figma has introduced it. Now coming to the point, maybe I don't want any of these items to actually go beyond a particular minimum width, let's say 320 pixels. So I'm going to say this is all good and fine and well, but I don't want these boxes to go beyond, or at least below, let's say 320 pixels. So if I try to resize it, as soon as any of these boxes go below 320 pixels, as you can see, they're actually resizing. So previously you had like 3, then you have 2, then you have 1, and you have all of this like really awesome stuff going on. Now if you obviously wanted 2 of them to actually go at the bottom instead of just 1, then you can obviously group them into an auto layout yourself and play around with that. So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Now coming to another important thing, which are variables. So what has Figma done with variables? Well, it has done something really amazing. It just blows my mind up. So you can access your variables going to the design. If you have nothing selected, you're going to see local variables here. And you can see all of the collections here. You can create new collections. Now what are collections? Collections are basically, you can consider them a folder of sorts, a larger folder, where you can have different types of collections. So maybe you can have a translation collection, you can have a sizing collection, you can, sorry, not a sizing, translation collection, you can have, yeah, a sizing collection, you can have a dark mode, light mode collection, something along those lines, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to build one collection, and in that collection, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be converting this, actually creating variables and linking it to this particular button using variables obviously, and then changing it to light and dark mode. So the first thing you need to do is you need to click on create variables. You can create 4 types of variables: color, number, string, and boolean. So I'm going to first of all go ahead and create a color. So as you can see, it's saying, okay, what color do you want? I'm going to say this is going to be my button BG color, or it can also be just the primary color, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be button. I'm going to say this is my primary color. And what is your primary color? I'm just going to copy the button color and paste it here. Then I can also create another variable. I can say I want to have another color, which is going to be my text color. And this text color, my friend, is going to be white. That's okay. And I also want to create another color that's going to be our background, and that can be something like gray. I'm just changing it slightly so that it does not resemble the text color. So now if you actually want to link all of these colors, and I can obviously go ahead and rename this or do whatever, rename this collection if I want to. So I can say these are my colors, let's say. I can also group certain things. So I can say I want to group these, and I can, let's say, group these in a selection if I want, and all of that stuff. So all of that is something that I can do, but I don't want to focus on that. So similar to colors, you can obviously apply numbers, you can apply strings, and we're just going to do colors and strings for now because I just want to explain these two things to you. So now if I actually want this to be linked to the colors that I've created, I can go here to the fill, and I'm just going to move, I actually close this old variables thing. I'm going to go here, I'm going to say libraries, and I can see all of the colors that I have in my library, right? So I'm going to say I want this to be linked to the primary color. This text needs to be linked to what? It needs to be linked to the text color. And this particular background needs to be linked to the background, obviously. Pretty simple stuff, right? So now this is basically linked not to styles, not to any styles that I have. We are not going to use styles anymore for this. We're going to use local variables, or obviously they can be probably team variables as well. Now if I want to change these colors, I can change it directly from here. So these behave very similarly as styles, but they're super powerful. So what I can do now is I can actually create a light and dark mode. So I can actually, so it's saying, hey, you can't really create light and dark mode or any of these variable modes in a free plan, which is unfortunate. So I'm actually just going to move it to one of my teams. So I've moved it to one of my design teams, and now it's on in my asset designs. Now I can go ahead and I can do the same thing. I can go to my local variables, I can click plus, and this is going to be mode 1, mode 2. I can say this is going to be a light mode. This one is going to be our dark mode, right? And then in the light and the dark mode, the difference is going to be, let's say, I don't know, I'm just going to do something random. So it's going to be something like this. The color is going to be a bit brighter, and maybe this particular text can be still white, and the background can change. Background can change to something like this. So I've done that. Now if I wanted to apply it, I can just go here. Quite simply, just go here, go to the layers option and go to the colors and change the light and dark mode. I can say this is going to be dark, and I don't even have to do it here. I can do it at the top. I can go here, change the mode to dark, or let's say change the mode to light. And I'm not sure why it says mode. Obviously this needs to be dark. So this is amazing stuff. Now if we actually go ahead and duplicate this, I can say this one is going to be dark. So even if I don't have the button, even if I have the button located here, if I just move it here, since it's in a light frame, it's going to be light. Since it's in a dark frame, this button in itself automatically is going to be converted into dark. Similarly, what we can do is we can actually change the button text. So imagine if this was log in, right? So if this was log in, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually just going to place it here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another variable. Let's go ahead and actually go to our local variables. I'm going to create another collection. So I'm going to say there's going to be another collection, which is going to be what? It's going to be, let's say, translation. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, let's say, a string here. I'm going to say this is going to be like, let's say, our login button. So the default value of the login is going to be login. And then in, let's say, I don't know, Arabic, it's going to be login, or let's say Logan. I don't even know. Laugan. I'm sorry. Sorry for those who speak Arabic. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm just saying, just trying to demonstrate something. So we have, sorry, not, so this is like Arabic. This one is like English. And obviously we have the name login. So now I can obviously link this as well. I can go here and I can say this is going to be linked to the login variables. So now if I obviously go here, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to change the theme. So now if I wanted to actually change the text here, I can just go here. I can basically put both these buttons on the left and the right. I can go ahead and I can say that this is going to be translation. This one is going to be Arabic, and this one can by default be English, right? So now as you can see, this is English, this is Arabic. Even if I just drag this button here, it's automatically going to convert to that particular language. If I grab it here, it's going to convert to the other language. Similarly, I can go ahead and I can say, not only do I want the language to change, but I also want this one to be darker as well, or something along those lines, right? Let me just go ahead and actually link this particular background again. So I'm going to link it. So now if we go here, this is going to change the language and the background, or sorry, the theming as well. So this is insane stuff. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Thing I'd just like to quickly mention, I actually have a paid Figma Noob to Pro course where I'm going to actually be breaking down all of these things in extreme detail and actually real world use cases. So if you want to check it out, you actually want to be a pro and a master in Figma, definitely check that thing out. You also get a 50% off if you use my AM subscriber voucher code. But let's get to the next thing. So now that we're done with variables, let's talk about advanced prototyping. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that I could have talked about variables, but we just need to wrap this quick video quickly. Otherwise, it's going to be like an hour long, maybe even longer than Figma Config's keynote. So we're going to be using the playground file for advanced prototyping because it definitely requires a lot of things. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about, I've already mentioned the variables type are these 4 types. You already know that. Applying variables, I've explained that. How do you actually go ahead and apply variables? How do you open variables? I've already mentioned all of that. Now coming to some other important points. Now imagine you have this particular text here, and I actually wanted to link it to something. How would I go ahead and do that? I can go into the prototype view. I can obviously not in the prototype view. I just want to link it to something, like link it to a particular text. So I'm going to link it to, let's say I want to create another variable of my own, right? I just want to go ahead and actually create my own variable. Maybe this is going to be, I don't know, name of fruit or something, right? So by default, let's say I'm just going to say the title is going to be choose a fruit. So I'm creating a variable of my own, which is in my own collection. Now, obviously they have already created some collections in this file, but I'm going to create it in my own collection. So as you can see, as soon as I apply it, the default value that I mentioned is now here, but now we can change it. What I can do is I'm going to say that if a person clicks on this, if a person clicks on this particular fruit, which is I think cherry or something, I want you to change the variable. So again, it's saying I have to choose the team. So let's just go ahead and move it to set designs. So I think that should be there. So now I'm going to say I want you to set a variable, and I want you to change a variable. Which variable do I want it to change? The name of the fruit, the variable that I created. I'm going to say it's going to be changed to, let's say, I don't know what these are. Maybe these are berries or something. So let's just go ahead and say berries. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to say this should change the name of the fruit to, let's say, peaches or something. So now if we actually play this, now this is really important. If you press shift and space, you actually have something like a quick preview or an inline preview, which actually runs pretty fast and actually stays there right completely beside you. So you can just, if you actually want to preview any particular frame, you can just, let's say, click on that particular frame and it's going to be there. So as you can see, it says choose a fruit. If I click on these berries, nothing happens. If I click on it, it changes to peaches. So let's see what happened. Unfortunately, I'm not sure where that particular set variable went. So we're just going to do that again. So we're going to say this is going to be our berries, enter, enter. And now as you can see, if I'm clicking on berries, the text is changing to berries. If I'm clicking on peaches, the text is changing to peaches. Pretty awesome stuff. Similarly, let's go here. It's saying that you can actually change. Actually, I think we can even play this. Like I think they've actually set this by default. So if I click on 1, 2, 3, as you can see, what they're doing is they're changing the instance used above, but just by clicking the 1, 2, 3. And what exactly is happening here, I'm going to explain it to you. It's saying if a person clicks on 1, I want you to change the shape to circle, the shape to diamond, and the shape to star. And this particular shape thing, and I'm going to explain it to you as well. Let me just actually grab this particular slide, press enter, and I'm just going to go ahead and actually unlock these things so I can show it to you. So if we go here and if we go to the design tab, as you can see, this is a component, and this component has multiple variants. The name of the variants are circle, diamond, and star. So what this is doing is it's linking this particular thing to a particular variable, and I can detach it. So as you can see, these are the variants, but it's actually linking it to a particular variable, and that variable is being changed. So if a person clicks on 1, that particular variable is being changed to circle. If someone is clicking on 2, it's changed to diamond. If a person is clicking on 3, it's changing to star. So the variable text is changing, and that particular text is matching the variants, which is why this is updating. Pretty insane stuff, right? We can actually do the same thing here. We can, as you can see, we have this plant image, and it has 3 variants. Monstera, let's actually change that to something else. That's probably a bit more simple. So first, I'm just going to change that to first, so it's much more simpler. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that I want this particular variant type to be linked to my, and I'm going to create my own variable again, plant image. And what's the default value is going to be? Like, I'm going to say it's going to be first, because we obviously want it to be linked to the first one. If we go ahead and actually don't link it to the first one, it may mess up. So now I'm going to say if a person clicks on, let's say, Monstera, this can actually even be first because I changed it to first. This doesn't matter. This text doesn't matter. This interaction matters that I'm setting up. So if I click on first, I want the plant image to be first. If I click on this fig leaf, I want the plant image to be fig. As you can see on the left, that's the name of the variant. So I'm going to say set variable fig. Oh, sorry. Instead of actually choosing the variable first, I was choosing the expression. And then we go here and I'm going to say again, interaction, set variable. And this is going to be, what do we call it? Plant image. And then, sorry, not plant image. We're going to say the expression is going to be ZZ. And then press enter, enter. Okay, so I think that's pretty much done. This is also, I think, done. Everything should be working fine. Let's just go ahead and press shift space. So as you can see, if I press the second one, the second variant is going to be chosen. If I press the third one, the third variant is going to be chosen. If I press the first button, the first variant is going to be chosen. This is insane. I'm telling you, this is insane. And you can do the same thing here, circle, diamond, and all of that stuff. There's nothing really complicated here. It's pretty much the exact same thing that I just showed you. Similarly here, nothing really common going on. Assign variable, click the plant image instance in the property. Again, this is pretty basic stuff. I don't necessarily need to explain this. This particular thing is also just triggering an overlay. You can have multiple actions. So basically what's happening here is if you click on this, it's basically triggering an overlay. So that's pretty simple, I guess. I think like these are pretty simple things, so I don't necessarily need to explain them. But what I want you to actually understand is something a bit more complex. And we're going to do that a bit here. So let's actually do that complex thing here. Because I've actually done this exercise, I just want to go to the complex stuff. So what I want to do here is I want this particular volume bar to increase if I click on plus and it to decrease if I click on minus. So how do you go ahead and do that? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to link this particular width to something, right? So I'm going to say this is going to be, and I'm actually creating my own variables to explain it to you so you actually understand it. So the name of this variable is going to be like volume level, and let's just make it to 300 because that's a default width. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say in this prototype, if I let's say click on this particular button, I want you to set the variable to what do I want you to set the variable? I want you to set the volume level to, let's say, what I want it to be, the volume level plus, let's say, something like 20 or 10 or yeah, whatever. You get the idea, right? So I want it to be plus 20. Similarly, if I let's say click on this, I want this particular width to increase or volume level to decrease to what? Minus 20. Pretty simple, similar to the plus thing that we did. So I'm just going to press shift space here. And now if we click plus on it, as you can see, the level is increasing. If you press minus, the level is decreasing. But there's a problem here. If we keep on pressing 1, this particular width, even though you can't see it because I think there's a clip content applied here. If I remove the clip content from both these places, as you can see, it's exceeding. But maybe we don't want it to exceed, right? How do you go ahead and do that? Well, you do that by certain conditions. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply just one condition to explain certain things to you. So I'm going to say that's perfectly fine, but I also want another conditional here. The conditional that I want is if the volume level is, let's say, greater than, I don't know, 400 pixels. Let's just go ahead and do that. If it's greater than 400 pixels, do something. Otherwise, and I'm going to say do nothing. So I don't want this button to behave or do anything. I'm going to say I want you to do something if it's greater than 400. I don't want you to do anything. If it's less than 400, then I want you to do something. So I'm going to say set the variable of the volume level, and then I'm going to say the volume level is going to be plus 20. So now let's see what happens. If I press, let's say, shift spacebar, as you can see, it doesn't increase, right? It decreases, but it doesn't increases. And the reason for that is I messed up the conditional, right? So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say, what's the conditional? If it's like greater than 400, should it be this? Obviously that's wrong. So I can easily go ahead and just drag that. I don't have to delete it, do again, any of that. I can just go ahead and drag it down. So as you can see, it's increasing, but as soon as it reaches 400 pixels in width, it stops. I can't really go ahead and do that. But I can also say that if it reaches, let's say 400 pixels or something, I want it to, let's say, I want the volume level to do what? To start decreasing, even on the press of the plus button. So as you can see, now it's decreasing as soon as it reaches 400, and it increases when it's like below 400. So pretty like weird stuff that I'm actually doing to help you understand these things. And similarly, we can do the same thing here. Pretty simple. I've already explained this conditional thing to you, and you can play around with this file. Hopefully this gives you a better introduction of all the features that Figma has introduced, and we're going to be covering these in detail. I'm actually especially going to be covering this in my Figma Noob to Pro course that I have. So if you want to check it out, definitely check it out in the description. You're going to get a 50% off if you actually use the AM subscriber voucher code. Let's talk about the last thing that I want to talk about, which is the developer view. So in the developer view, actually the Figma file does really good in this particular view, and I'm just going to go ahead and quickly show you what happens. So the developer view can actually be toggled by going to the top right here, and we're just going to go to the file here. This is the file that they've prepared for us. So the developer views can be toggled by going here. You can also press Shift D to toggle it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward stuff. Now what happens as soon as you basically toggle this particular thing? Well, the first thing that happens is, and this is really important, the things that are ready for dev. So the things that aren't ready for dev, for example, this isn't ready for dev. As you can see, there's a small sign right beside this section. I can mark it ready for dev, and that's going to actually start appearing on the left. But if something is not ready for dev, it's not going to appear on the left. Only the things within a section that are ready for dev are going to appear in the left-hand sidebar, and the sidebar is going to be super simplified. If I actually click on a design, it's actually going to zoom out, zoom in, do all of that adjustment up so the user can actually see what he's interested in. If I similarly wanted to convert this to ready for dev, I can just click it, and now as you can see, I have these components here as well. I can just click on them to easily select them. It's pretty easy. Similarly, if I, let's say, wanted to select this particular variant, I can do that. If I select this particular thing, I'm there. And it's not going to select the shapes or the strokes. It's actually just going to select that particular thing that's there, which is pretty amazing. I can actually see the spacing and padding just by hovering over things. So imagine this is my design. If I just want to see the padding in between these two things, I don't have to press Alt anything. If I just hover over things, I can actually see the spacing. And not only just that, I can actually see the variables used for spacing, not just like pixels, the variables. As you can see, there are certain variables used here, and I can easily just see that. I can also go ahead and actually view certain components in the playground. So this is a component, right? As you can see on the left, it's a component. I can open this component in a playground, and I can see what this particular component does, like how many props there are. I can mess around with those props. I can change the text. I can see how this text is actually going to look if, let's say, it was something different, if it was something longer, if I actually change the price, how it's going to look. So it's going to be really helpful for developers to actually look at, play around with these files and figure out what's going on. Similarly, one thing really important that I actually want to point out is you have tons of plugins available as well if you actually want to go ahead and actually play around with them. So you have Storybook Connect, you have again some Jira stuff, and all of those things basically are here for you to play around with. You can see all of your assets here, all of your colors, the layout files. You can copy them. You can copy the CSS code, Swift UI code, Compose code. I mean, really awesome stuff. This developer view, especially if you actually familiarize your developers with it, is going to be super powerful for them, and it's going to really ease the handoff process. So that's pretty much what I have for this particular video. Hopefully this gives you an introduction of all the features that Figma has introduced. I'm going to link all of these files, actually the files that Figma actually has for their community and their playground here, so you can definitely have a look at them and start playing around and diving deeper. So do subscribe, do hit the bell icon, and I'll see you later. Take care. Bye.